The grand chamber of the Galactic Council stretched for nearly a kilometer in every direction. Thousands of representatives from hundreds of species filled the tiered seats that circled the central platform. The air hummed with translation devices working overtime to convert countless languages into something each species could understand. Today, the chamber buzzed with unusual energy. The humans had requested an emergency session and nobody knew why. Ambassador Dae-hyun walked to the center platform with steady steps. His dark suit looked simple compared to the elaborate robes and armor worn by other delegates. Behind him stood two other humans. Ji-woo wore her military uniform, medals gleaming on her chest. Hana carried a data tablet, her expression calm and focused. The three humans stood together waiting for silence. Archon Velthrak rose from his elevated seat. The reptilian leader's scales caught the light as he moved. His voice boomed across the chamber without need for amplification. The council recognizes Ambassador Dae-hyun of Earth. Speak your purpose, human. Dae-hyun touched a control on his wrist. A holographic display appeared above the platform, showing documents and statistics. Thank you, Archon. I come before this council to formally announce humanity's withdrawal from the Galactic Alliance. Effective 30 days from today, Earth and all human colonies will cease membership in this organization. The chamber erupted. Voices rose in dozens of languages. Some delegates laughed. Others shouted questions. A few simply stared in confusion. Velthrak raised one clawed hand and the noise gradually died down. Withdrawal? The Archon's laugh rumbled like falling rocks. This is a negotiation tactic. A crude one. What do you want, human? Better trade terms? Another seat on the Security Council? Dae-hyun shook his head. This is not a negotiation. This is a notice of departure. We have served this council for 217 years. In that time, we have fought your wars, built your stations, and solved problems you deemed impossible. We have met every requirement for full council membership 3 times over. Each time you denied us. Hive Queen Shivera leaned forward on her throne. The insectoid's multifaceted eyes glittered with something like amusement. You forget your place, human. We gave your species technology. We brought you into galactic civilization. Without us, you would still be crawling on your single muddy planet. You gave us the minimum, Ji-woo said, stepping forward. Her voice carried the hard edge of someone who had seen combat. You gave us just enough to make us useful. Every time we developed our own technology, you restricted it. Every time we proposed exploration into new regions, you forbid it. You kept us as workers and soldiers, nothing more. Another delegate stood. This one was a tall, crystalline being that shimmered in the light. Perhaps humans are suited only for such roles. Have you considered this? The council operates on wisdom accumulated over millions of years. We know what is best. Hana activated another display. Numbers and charts filled the air. These statistics show human contributions to council projects over the last century. 73% of agricultural innovations came from human scientists. 68% of military victories involved human tactics or human soldiers. 82% of diplomatic resolutions to internal conflicts were mediated by human ambassadors. We are not claiming superiority. We are stating facts. Facts that prove you are valuable to us, Velthrak said. His tone suggested he was losing patience, which is why this talk of leaving is nonsense. You need council protection. You need council trade routes. You need our technology and our markets. Where will you go? What will you do? Dae-hyun met the Archon's gaze without flinching. That is not your concern. We have made our decision. We will honor all existing contracts. We will return all council property. We will cause no damage and create no conflicts. In 30 days, every human in council space will leave peacefully. The chamber erupted again. This time the tone was different. Anger mixed with confusion. Some delegates still laughed, but others looked uncertain. A few whispered urgently to their aides. A smaller delegate stood. This species was known for careful thinking and economic expertise. Ambassador, please reconsider. The economic disruption alone would be catastrophic. For both sides. Surely we can discuss whatever grievances. We tried discussion. Dae-hyun interrupted. His voice remained calm but firm. For decades, we presented proposals, made compromises, followed every protocol. The council response was always the same. Wait, be patient. Know your place. We are done waiting. Velthrak slammed his hand on his throne's armrest. The sound echoed like a thunderclap. You are making a grave mistake, human. You think you can survive without us? You will come crawling back within a year, begging for readmission, and we will remember this insult. Daehyun allowed himself a small smile. Perhaps you are right, Archon. Perhaps we will fail, but it will be our failure. Our choice. Our destiny. For 2 centuries we have built greatness for others. Now we will see what we can build for ourselves. Ji-woo pulled out a data chip and placed it on the platform. This contains all relevant information. Withdrawal schedules, contract fulfillment timelines, property return manifests. Everything is documented. Everything is legal under council charter. We have broken no laws. Laws? Shavera's voice buzzed with irritation. You hide behind laws while spitting on tradition and loyalty? We learned from the best, Hana said quietly. The council has used laws to keep us in our place for 2 centuries. Now we use those same laws to leave. Velthrak stood to his full impressive height. Very well. Take your 30 days. Pack your belongings. Run to whatever dark corner of space you think will accept you. But know this, humans. The galaxy is not kind to those who stand alone. The council has kept peace for eons. Without our protection, you will face pirates, hostile species, environmental dangers. You will learn that pride is a poor substitute for survival. Daehyun bowed slightly, a gesture of respect but not submission. We appreciate your concern, Archon. But humans have always excelled at survival. It is perhaps our greatest strength. He turned to leave, then paused. One more thing. In our time here, we made friends among many species, individuals who saw us as equals. To them we say this, our doors remain open. The confederation we are building welcomes all who value freedom and mutual respect. The 3 humans walked from the chamber. Their footsteps echoed in the sudden silence. They did not look back. They did not hurry. They simply left with dignity intact. Behind them, the council delegates sat in stunned quiet. Slowly, whispers began, then arguments, then accusations, but the humans were already gone, and the 30-day countdown had begun. Outside the chamber, Daehyun allowed himself to breathe deeply. Ji-woo looked at him with concern. Think they believe we are serious now? They will, Daehyun said. In exactly 30 days. When every human station is empty. When every human ship is gone. When they realize we meant every word. Hana checked her tablet. Evacuation fleets are already moving into position. Everyone knows the plan. We will be ready. The 3 humans walked down the corridor toward their shuttle. Behind them, the Galactic Council descended into chaos. Ahead of them, an uncertain but free future waited. They did not know what challenges they would face. They did not know if they would succeed. But they knew one thing with absolute certainty. They were finally free to find out. The evacuation began exactly as planned. On the 28th day after Ambassador Daehyun's announcement, the first human transport ships arrived at Sigma Station. The massive military installation floated in council space like a small moon, bristling with weapons and docking bays. For 140 years, it had been humanity's primary defense outpost. Now it would be emptied. Captain Yun-ho stood on the command deck watching the orderly lines of personnel moving toward the transport ships. His uniform was crisp despite the long hours he had worked. His face showed no emotion as he gave orders to his crew. Section 7 complete. Begin evacuation of Section 8. Remember, we take everything that humans built or improved. Leave nothing useful behind. His second officer, Mireille, worked at her station with focused intensity. She coordinated the movements of dozens of ships simultaneously, ensuring no collisions and maximum efficiency. Transport Vessel Harmony requesting permission to dock at Bay 12, she reported. Granted, Yun-ho said. Have them load the reactor components from Engineering Deck 4. Those are human-designed. The Council never understood how we made them work anyway. Throughout the station, human personnel moved with purpose. They dismantled equipment, packed supplies, and erased data cores. Everything happened in near silence. No complaints. No arguments. No emotional outbursts. Just systematic, professional work. A council observer watched from the gallery above the main hangar. The insectoid officer clicked his mandibles nervously as he saw crate after crate being loaded onto human ships. This is excessive, he buzzed to his aide. They are taking too much. Surely some of this equipment belongs to the council. His aide checked a data pad. According to records, humans either built or significantly modified every item being removed. Legally, they have the right. But how will the station function? The aide said nothing. They both knew the answer. It would not function, not well, maybe not at all. On the agricultural world of Tarsus 7, farmer Hyunwoo walked through his fields one last time. The crop stretched to the horizon, a mix of earth plants and alien species that he had spent 20 years learning to grow together. The hybrid crops fed 12 different council species, each with different nutritional needs. He had solved the impossible puzzle of growing them all in the same soil. His daughter ran up to him, excitement in her young voice. "Papa, the transport ship is almost full. They loaded all our equipment and seeds. Are we really going to a new world?" Hyunwoo smiled and ruffled her hair. "Yes, little one. A world where we can grow anything we imagine. No more council restrictions on which crops we can experiment with." A council agricultural overseer approached nervously. "Farmer Hyunwoo, please. Perhaps you could stay a few more months, train our people to maintain the crops." Hyunwoo shook his head politely. "I offered training programs for 15 years. Your people always said they were too busy. I even wrote detailed manuals. They are in your database, but the manuals are not enough. There are subtleties, techniques that only you understand." "Then I suggest you learn quickly," Hyunwoo said without anger. "The crops need specific care. The timing must be precise. The soil balance must be perfect. It took me years to master it. I imagine it will take your people years as well. I wish you luck." He walked away, leaving the overseer staring at fields that would likely die within a season. On the industrial moon of Forge 12, engineer Sujin supervised the shutdown of the main fusion reactors. These massive machines powered half the sector's energy grid. She had designed them herself, improving on council technology that was centuries old but stagnant. Her improvements increased efficiency by 300%. "Reactor 3 is offline," one of her technicians reported. "Cooling cycle complete. Ready for transport." "Good," Sujin said. "Begin dismantling the core. We will reassemble it at the new facility." A council engineer watched in horror. "You cannot take the reactors. We need power." Sujin pointed to the older reactors sitting unused in the corner. "Those still work. They are council designed. Use them. But they produce 1/3 the power and use 4 times the fuel." "Yes," Sujin agreed. "That is why I built better ones, which I am now taking with me because they are mine." She turned back to her work, ignoring the engineer's protests. Across council space, the scene repeated endlessly. Human doctors packed up medical equipment they had invented. Human pilots flew out warships they had maintained. Human teachers erased lesson plans they had created. Every station, every colony, every outpost became a little emptier, a little quieter, a little less functional. In the council chambers, emergency meetings ran day and night. Delegates shouted accusations at each other. Some blamed the humans. Others blamed council leadership. A few quietly suggested maybe they should have treated humanity better. Belthrak tried to maintain control, but even he looked shaken. "They are actually doing it," he muttered to Shivera during a break. "They are really leaving." "Let them go," the Hive Queen said, though her voice lacked its usual confidence. "They will fail in the outer darkness. They will return. And if they do not?" Shivera had no answer. On day 30, Captain Yunho stood alone on Sigma Station's empty command deck. Every human was gone. Every piece of human-made equipment was removed. The station still had basic life support and minimal power, but it was a shell of its former capability. He touched the console one last time, then walked to his shuttle. As he lifted off, he looked back at the station through the viewport. It had been his home for 10 years. Now it was just another council facility, a monument to what humanity had built for others. His communications officer, a young woman named Hyojin, spoke from the pilot's seat. "Captain, we are receiving final reports. All human personnel are accounted for. All colonies evacuated. All equipment secured. The exodus is complete." "Set course for the rendezvous point," Yunho ordered. "It is time to go home. Our real home." The massive human fleet assembled at the edge of council space. Thousands of ships, from small personal shuttles to enormous colony vessels. They hung in space like a metal constellation, organized and ready. Ambassador Daehyun broadcast a final message to the council from his flagship. His face appeared on screens across council territory. "To the Galactic Council and all member species, humanity thanks you for the centuries we spent together. We learned much. We grew much. Now we seek our own path among the stars. We wish you peace and prosperity. Farewell." The message ended. No threats, no insults, no dramatic proclamations, just a simple goodbye. The fleet turned as one and accelerated toward the galactic rim, toward regions the Council had marked as uninhabitable, toward space that was supposedly too dangerous to explore, toward freedom. In council chambers, delegates watched the fleet disappear from sensors. Some felt relief. Many felt unease. A few felt genuine sadness. None of them truly understood what they had just lost. Velthrak sat heavily in his throne. It is done. Let us return to normal business. But as the days passed, they discovered there was no normal to return to. The cracks were already beginning to show. Equipment failures, supply shortages, diplomatic conflicts that human mediators had quietly prevented. The problems were small at first, barely noticeable, but they were growing. Far from council space, the human fleet entered a region of wild stars and strange nebulas. The darkness ahead was not empty. It was full of possibilities, full of challenges, full of freedom. Yunho stood on his bridge looking at the strange colors of the surrounding space. "What are our orders, Captain?" Mirai asked. He smiled. "Find us a home, one worthy of humanity." The fleet pushed forward into the unknown. Behind them, the Galactic Council faced a future without humans. Ahead of them, humanity faced a future they would build themselves. The real test was about to begin. 6 months after the humans left, the Council began to understand what they had lost. The problems started small and scattered like the first drops before a storm. Then they became a flood that threatened to drown everything. Administrator Krellick sat in his office surrounded by data screens. The amphibian's skin had lost its healthy green color, fading to a sickly gray. He had not slept properly in weeks. The logistics reports piled higher each day, each one bringing worse news than the last. Another shipping delay, his assistant reported. The Vega Centauri route is backed up for 3 weeks. Ships are sitting in dock waiting for loading schedules that nobody can figure out. Krellick croaked in frustration. What happened to the old schedules? The system worked for 100 years. The old schedules were human designed, the assistant said quietly. They optimized routes based on hundreds of variables. Fuel costs, traffic patterns, species-specific cargo requirements, even seasonal stellar phenomena. Our people are trying to recreate the system, but it is too complex. That system was designed for 1/10 the current traffic. It cannot handle modern volume. Krellick put his head in his hands. This was just one of 1,000 problems. The agricultural crisis had hit even faster than the shipping problems. Entire worlds faced food shortages. The hybrid crops that Hyunwoo and other human farmers had developed were dying. Council scientists tried to save them using the manuals the humans left behind, but the instructions assumed knowledge that those scientists did not have. On Tarsus 7, the once fertile fields had become a disaster. Crop yields dropped by 70% in just 2 growing seasons. The remaining plants were weak and disease-prone. The council sent their best agricultural experts to solve the problem. They failed. One expert stood in the dying fields, staring at the withered plants. "I do not understand," he said to his team. "We followed the manual exactly. We used the correct fertilizer ratios. We maintained the irrigation schedule. Why is it not working?" A younger scientist checked her readings. "The soil pH is wrong. It has shifted in the past month. The manual says to adjust pH using compound 17. We did. It had no effect." The senior expert wanted to scream. The problem was that Hyunwoo had not just followed a manual. He had understood the principles. He could see patterns and make adjustments based on instinct and experience. He could feel when something was wrong before the instruments detected it. That knowledge could not be written down. It could only be learned through years of practice. Knowledge the Council had refused to learn when they had the chance. The military situation was even worse. Commander Thaxor paced on the bridge of the flagship Determination. The proud warrior had led Council forces for decades. He had won countless battles. Now he could not even keep his own ship properly maintained. Engineering reports another power fluctuation, his second officer announced. The shields are operating at 70% capacity. Again? Thaxor's fur bristled with anger. "We just repaired that system last week." The repair did not hold. The engineers say they need replacement parts that are no longer available. How can parts not be available? "We have factories." The factories produce the parts. but they are not calibrated correctly. Human technicians used to handle the fine-tuning. Without them, the parts fail quickly. Daxter wanted to break something. Across the fleet, warships sat in dock with maintenance issues. Weapon systems malfunctioned during tests. Shield generators failed randomly. Propulsion systems ran inefficiently. The fleet's combat readiness had dropped by half, and it was getting worse. The problems went deeper than just maintenance. Human pilots and tacticians had trained Council military personnel for generations. They had developed new strategies, created training programs, and improved combat doctrine. Without them, the military felt lost. New recruits received inferior training. Veterans found themselves uncertain how to handle situations that humans would have solved easily. On the Council homeworld, Engineer Valesh made a discovery that chilled her to her core. She was examining the planetary defense grid when she found the modifications. Thousands of them, subtle improvements made over decades by human engineers. The humans had never been authorized to redesign the system. They had just made it better, one small change at a time. Now those changes were failing. What is the extent of the problem? Velthrak demanded when Valesh presented her findings to the Emergency Council meeting. Archon, the defense grid is essentially a human-designed system wearing a council skin, Valesh said carefully. They rewrote the core protocols, improved the targeting algorithms, enhanced the power distribution, and optimized the sensor arrays. Our current engineers cannot maintain it properly because they do not understand the human thinking behind the designs. Can we replace it with the original council system? That would take years and cost more resources than we can spare. Also, the original system was inferior in every way. The human improvements increased our defensive capability by a factor of 5. Velthrak felt something he had not experienced in centuries. Fear. How long until critical failure? Impossible to predict. Could be years. Could be months. The system is degrading, but at an irregular rate. The diplomatic problems were perhaps the most surprising. For decades, the Council had prided itself on maintaining peace between member species. Old grudges and conflicts were managed through careful diplomacy. What they had not realized was how much of that diplomacy was done by humans. Two Council species, the Thorians and the Vex, had hated each other for millennia. Ancient wars had left deep scars, but for the past century they had maintained an uneasy peace. Now that peace was shattering. The Vex have violated our territorial boundaries again, the Thorian ambassador shouted during a council session. This is the 5th incident in 2 months. We were conducting routine surveys, the Vex representative replied coldly. Surveys in neutral space, as is our right. That space is not neutral. The treaty is outdated and unclear. Shivera tried to mediate. Perhaps we can form a committee to review the treaty language, and we do not need another committee. The Thorian ambassador roared. We need action. Krellix watched the argument escalate and suddenly understood. The treaty had always been unclear. The boundaries had always been disputed. But human diplomats had quietly managed these tensions. They had held informal meetings, suggested compromises, and defused conflicts before they reached the council floor. They had been the invisible glue holding dozens of species together. Now that glue was gone. Similar conflicts erupted across council space. Trade disputes turned into threats of war. Border disagreements became military standoffs. Cultural misunderstandings, once smoothed over by human mediators, now festered and grew. Velthrak called a private meeting with his closest advisors. We must find the humans, negotiate their return. With respect, Archon, one advisor said carefully. What can we offer them? We denied them full membership when we had leverage. Now we have none. We can offer them what they wanted, full council membership, equal voting rights, technology access. It may not be enough. Pride is a powerful force, then we offer more. Better trade terms, military alliances, whatever they want. And if they refuse? Velthrak had no answer. None of them did. The mighty Galactic Council, rulers of 1,000 worlds, found themselves helpless without a species they had considered inferior. The Council authorized an expedition to find humanity and open negotiations. A small fleet of diplomatic ships was prepared. The best negotiators were selected. Generous offers were drafted. They would find the humans in whatever dark corner of space they had fled to, and bring them back. The expedition left with great ceremony. Velthrak gave a speech about reconciliation and mutual benefit. The assembled delegates applauded. Deep down, many of them felt doubt. Would the humans even talk to them? And if they did, what would the price be? The expedition traveled to the coordinates where the human fleet had last been detected. They found nothing. Empty space. No colonies. No stations, no ships. It was as if humanity had vanished completely. The expedition leader sent scouts to search nearby systems. They checked every planet and moon that might support life. They found nothing. The humans had gone deeper into the unexplored regions than the Council dared to follow. After 3 weeks of fruitless searching, the expedition turned back. Their failure was complete. When they returned, Velthrak asked only one question.
Did you find any trace?
No, Archon. They are gone. Truly gone. In the council chambers, a heavy silence fell. They had always assumed the humans would be easy to find, easy to convince to return. That assumption had been wrong. Like so many of their assumptions about humanity, the problems continued to cascade. Systems failed. Conflicts escalated. The economy weakened. And with each passing day, the council understood more clearly what they had lost. Not just workers, not just soldiers, but the one species that made everything work better, the one species that solved impossible problems, the one species that held the fractious council together through sheer competence and determination. They had called humans inferior. They had kept humans in their place. They had laughed when humans left. Now they would pay the price for their arrogance, and the bill was coming due faster than anyone had imagined. 3 years after leaving council space, humanity had transformed from refugees to pioneers. The change was so dramatic that even humans themselves were surprised by what they had accomplished. Ambassador Dae-hyun stood on the observation deck of New Haven's orbital station. Below him, the planet gleamed like a jewel. Cities of glass and steel spread across the continents. Oceans sparkled blue and green under the light of 2 stars. It was beautiful, and it was theirs. Hard to believe we found this place in a system the council called unstable and uninhabitable, said Mireille, who had joined him to review the latest reports. Dae-hyun smiled. They looked at the binary stars and saw danger. We looked and saw opportunity. The New Haven system orbited twin stars, one yellow and one orange. The council considered binary systems too unpredictable for colonization. The gravitational forces were complex. The stellar radiation fluctuated. It was too much trouble. But humans saw potential. They built cities designed to handle variable gravity. They developed shields that adapted to radiation changes in real time. They created energy collectors that harnessed both stars simultaneously, providing unlimited clean power. What the council feared, humans mastered. Admiral Yunho commanded the human fleet from Armstrong's Dream, a massive shipyard that floated impossibly close to a red giant star. The heat was intense enough to melt most known metals. The radiation would kill unshielded living beings in seconds. It was the perfect place to build starships. How are the new destroyers coming along? Yunho asked his chief engineer during his daily inspection. Ahead of schedule, Admiral, the engineer reported. The heat from the star actually helps the manufacturing process. We can forge hull components faster and stronger than ever before. Yunho nodded with satisfaction. The shipyard employed techniques the council had rejected as too dangerous. Humans worked in advanced suits with neural interfaces, controlling robotic systems directly with their thoughts. They used antimatter reactors that council scientists considered unstable. They incorporated quantum computing systems that other species found incomprehensible. The result was a fleet unlike anything in known space. Human ships were faster, more efficient, and more adaptable than council vessels. They could operate in environments that would destroy traditional ships. They could fight, explore, and survive anywhere. On the research station called Olympus, Chief Scientist Hana led teams that pushed the boundaries of what was possible. Free from council restrictions on dangerous research, human scientists made breakthrough after breakthrough. We did it, one of her researchers announced excitedly. Faster than light communication. Real-time, across any distance. Hana examined the data carefully. Are you certain? The council said this was theoretically impossible. The council was wrong. Or more accurately, they were too afraid to try. The method does involve some quantum instability, but we solved that problem. Show me, the researcher demonstrated. 2 communication devices separated by millions of kilometers transmitted messages instantly. No delay, no distortion, perfect clarity. Hana felt tears form in her eyes. This was what humans could do when nobody held them back. This was what happened when curiosity was encouraged rather than restricted. "Begin production," she ordered. Every human ship and station needs this technology. The medical advances were equally impressive. Human doctors developed nanotechnology that could repair injuries at the cellular level. They created treatments that extended healthy lifespans by centuries. They cured diseases that the Council had long considered incurable. The secret was simple. Humans were willing to try things others feared. Agricultural Director Hyunwoo stood in an underwater city on the planet Pacifica, watching his crops grow in the strangest farm in human space. The ocean world had no land, only endless water. The Council had surveyed it once and deemed it useless for food production. Humans had built cities on the ocean floor and farms in pressurized domes. They grew crops that thrived in high-pressure, low-light environments. They cultivated hybrid species that combined the best traits of dozens of plants. They even developed floating farm platforms that drifted on the currents, following optimal conditions. "The yield from Sector 7 is exceptional," his assistant reported. "These new pressure-adapted wheat varieties produce twice the grain of standard crops." Hyunwoo smiled. "And we are just getting started. On Pacifica, we can grow food in 3 dimensions, not just across the surface but deep into the ocean. One planet like this can feed a dozen colonies." Humanity had not stopped with a single colony. They had spread across the region the Council called the Outer Reaches. They settled worlds with toxic atmospheres, using advanced filters and biological modifications. They built stations in asteroid fields that provided perfect zero-gravity manufacturing. They established colonies near pulsars and black holes, studying phenomena the Council had only observed from a safe distance. Each challenge made humans stronger. Each obstacle became a learning opportunity. What the Council saw as limitations, humans saw as puzzles to solve. The most surprising development was diplomatic. Ambassador Mirai traveled extensively, meeting with species the Council had ignored or rejected. These were races from difficult regions of space, species with unusual biologies, civilizations that held different philosophies. The Council had dismissed them all. Humans welcomed them. On a diplomatic mission to the silicon-based Krev, Mirai sat in a chamber heated to temperatures that would cook most organic life. Her protective suit kept her alive, but communication was difficult. The Krev did not speak. They vibrated. Her translator worked slowly, converting the vibrations to speech. "You're welcome," as Council said. "We were primitive." "The Council was wrong," Mirai said. "You have survived in one of the harshest environments in the galaxy. That takes intelligence, adaptability, and strength. Those are qualities we respect." "What do you want?" "Partnership, trade, friendship, if you are interested." The Krev leader vibrated in a pattern the translator identified as surprise. "No." "Demands? No." "Conditions? Only honesty and mutual respect. You trade what you can offer. We trade what we can offer. Both sides benefit. Both sides grow." The Krev became humanity's first formal ally in the Confederation of Free Worlds. Others followed. The methane-breathing Vrel, the silicon-based Krev, the energy-based Toll, even species that had fled Council space because of persecution or discrimination. They all found welcome in human territory. Daehyun reviewed the latest reports with satisfaction.
17 species have joined the Confederation.
23 more are in negotiation. We have twice the territory we started with, and we have only been out here 3 years. Not just territory, Hana added, and knowledge. Each species brings unique perspectives and technologies. The Vrel shared their stellar navigation techniques. The Toll taught us new energy manipulation methods. We are learning and growing faster than ever. And the Council? Jiwoo asked. She had become head of intelligence, monitoring threats to human space. Struggling, Daehyun said. Our network of informants reports increasing problems. Economic troubles, military weakness, internal conflicts. Some species are quietly sending representatives to ask about joining the Confederation. Will we accept Council species? If they leave the Council first and if they accept our principles? Yes, we hold no grudges. We just refuse to be treated as inferiors. The transformation was complete. Humanity had not just survived without the Council. They had thrived. They built a civilization based on merit rather than tradition. They welcomed diversity rather than fearing it. They encouraged innovation rather than restricting it. On New Haven, children played in parks under the light of two suns. They were the first generation born entirely free from council influence. They would grow up knowing that humans could achieve anything they set their minds to, that no challenge was too great, that the only limitations were the ones they accepted. Yunho watched his shipyard work, building vessels that pushed the limits of engineering. Hana supervised research that rewrote the laws of physics. Hyunwoo grew crops in impossible places. Mirai forged alliances with species the council had rejected. And Daehyun coordinated it all, guiding humanity's expansion with wisdom earned through centuries of patience. He had been right when he told the council that humans excelled at survival. But it was more than that. Humans excelled at adaptation, at innovation, at taking the impossible and making it routine. The council had kept them small, had restricted their growth, had treated them as tools rather than partners. Now, free from those chains, humanity showed what they could truly become, and this was only the beginning. 5 years after humanity's departure, the Galactic Council convened an emergency session once again. The grand chamber that had once been filled with confident delegates now held desperate ones. The crisis could no longer be ignored or minimized. The council was failing, and everyone knew it. Archon Velthrak looked older than his years. His scales had dulled. His voice lacked its former power. "We must discuss the human question," he said heavily. "We must bring them back." The chamber erupted in debate. Some species still clung to pride. The Dranthi military commander stood and roared his opposition. "We do not beg. We are the Galactic Council. For millions of years we have maintained order and peace. We need no one." "Then explain our collapsing economy," Krellick said tiredly. "Explain the food shortages. Explain the shipping delays. Explain the internal conflicts that grow worse each month. Those are temporary problems. We will adapt. We have been adapting for 5 years. It is not working. It is getting worse." The vote was close and bitter. Many delegates felt humiliated by the idea of asking humans to return. But more felt desperate. Their worlds were suffering. Their people were angry. Something had to change. A delegation was formed. Velthrak would lead it personally, a sign of how serious the situation had become. They would go to human space, find their leaders, and negotiate their return. The council authorized them to offer almost anything humanity wanted. The journey took weeks. The delegation traveled far beyond council space into regions they had always avoided. The stars here were strange and unfamiliar. The space itself felt different, wild, and untamed. Finally, their sensors detected something. A massive structure orbiting a planet in a binary star system. Then more structures. Then cities on the planet below. Then dozens of ships moving in organized patterns. The delegation stared in shocked silence. "This cannot be right," one delegate whispered. "The scale of this construction, it would take centuries." "It has been 5 years," another replied. "Exactly." They were hailed by human patrol ships. The warships that intercepted them were sleek and powerful, far more advanced than council vessels. Admiral Yunho's face appeared on their screen, professional and courteous. "Welcome to New Haven System Council delegation. We have been expecting you. Please follow our escort ships to the diplomatic station. Ambassador Daehyun will meet you there." The escort led them through the system. What they saw shocked them into silence. Orbital stations that made council facilities look primitive. Cities that sprawled across continents with architecture that defied traditional engineering. Ships of designs they had never imagined. And everywhere the unmistakable signs of a thriving, growing civilization. "How?" Velthrak muttered. "How is this possible?" The diplomatic station was elegant and functional. The delegation was treated with courtesy and respect. They were given comfortable quarters and excellent food. Nobody mocked them. Nobody gloated. The humans were simply polite. Daehyun met them in a conference room with a view of New Haven below. He looked barely older than when they had last seen him. He smiled warmly and gestured to seats around a large table. "Welcome, Archon Velthrak. Welcome, honored delegates. It is good to see you again." Velthrak wanted to launch into his prepared speech, but the words caught in his throat. Through the viewport, he could see a planet that should not exist. A civilization that should not have been possible. "How did you do this?" he asked instead. "We worked hard," Daehyun said simply. "We cooperated. We innovated. We built something new. But the resources, the technology, the time required, we had everything we needed. determination, intelligence, freedom. The resources were always here in this region of space. The Council just never looked for them. Too dangerous, you always said. Too difficult. Too much effort for uncertain reward. Hana entered the room carrying datapads. We mapped 3,000 systems in the first year alone. Found abundant resources, habitable planets, and incredible opportunities. All in space the Council marked as wasteland. Shivera clicked her mandibles in agitation. You took risks. Foolish risks. Any of those systems could have killed you. Some were dangerous, yes, Mirai said, joining the meeting. We lost ships to unexpected phenomena. We had accidents. We learned. That is what exploration means. Risk and reward, Velthrak forced himself to focus. He had not come here to discuss human achievements. Ambassador Daehyun, I will be direct. The Council needs humanity. We were wrong to treat you as we did. We were wrong to deny you full membership. We were arrogant and foolish. We ask you to return. Return? Daehyun raised an eyebrow. To what? Our old status as junior members? Our old role as the Council's workers and soldiers? No, Velthrak said quickly. We offer full membership, complete equality, full voting rights, access to all Council technology and resources. You would be one of the leading species in the Council. We will formally apologize for all past treatment. The room fell silent. Daehyun looked at his fellow humans. Some hidden communication passed between them. Then he turned back to the Council delegation. We appreciate the offer, Archon. Truly. It is generous, but we must decline. The Council delegates reacted with shock. Decline? Velthrak could not believe what he was hearing. But we are offering you everything you wanted. 5 years ago that offer would have been enough, Daehyun said. Today it is not. We have built something here, something better than the Council. We call it the Confederation of Free Worlds. All species are equal. All voices matter. Technology is shared freely. Innovation is encouraged. Cooperation is genuine, not forced. We can change. One delegate insisted. The Council can reform. Can it? Jiwoo asked. Can you truly dismantle millions of years of tradition? Can you convince the elder species to treat younger species as equals? Can you break the rigid hierarchies that define your entire society? We can try, perhaps. But that is your journey, not ours. We have moved forward. We cannot go back. Velthrak felt something close to panic. Then what do you want? Name your price. Anything. Daehyun stood and walked to the viewport. There is no price, Archon. This is not a negotiation. We are not trying to gain leverage. We are simply content where we are. But the Council is collapsing without you. That is not our responsibility, Daehyun said gently but firmly. You chose to build a society that depended on keeping others down. Now you face the consequences. We sympathize truly, but we will not sacrifice our freedom to solve problems you created. Shivera's voice was bitter. So you would watch the Council fall? Watch billions suffer? No, Hana said. We will help. But on our terms. She distributed datapads to the delegates. These contain technologies and techniques that will help stabilize your situation. Agricultural methods to restore crop yields, simplified maintenance procedures for critical systems, conflict resolution frameworks for your diplomatic problems. But not the advanced technology, a delegate noted, scanning the pad. Not the cutting-edge material, no, Hana confirmed. We will not give you faster-than-light communication, advanced weapons, or quantum computing. Those technologies are dangerous in the wrong hands, but what we are offering will help you survive and rebuild. And trainers, Mirai added. We will send teachers and engineers to help your people learn these techniques. Volunteers only, on temporary assignments. They will teach, not do the work for you. Why? Velthrak asked. Why help us at all after how we treated you? Daehyun returned to his seat. Because it is right. Because we are not cruel. Because we hope that someday, the Council might become something worthy of partnership with humanity. But that day is not today. What must we do to earn that partnership? Velthrak asked quietly. Change, Daehyun said. Truly change. Dismantle your hierarchies. Treat all species as equals. Stop hoarding knowledge and power. Stop exploiting those weaker than you. Build a society based on merit and cooperation, not tradition and dominance. If you can do that, if you can transform the Council into something new, then we can talk about alliance. That could take decades, centuries. Yes, it will be difficult. Many will resist. Some species will leave the council rather than accept change, but if you succeed, you will build something better, something worth having. The delegation left New Haven 3 days later. They carried the gifts humanity offered and a hard truth. The mighty Galactic Council had been humbled by a species they had considered inferior. More than that, they had been shown a better way, a way that required them to change everything they were. On the journey home, Velthrak read through the materials Hana had provided. The technology was brilliant, but simplified enough for council scientists to understand with effort. The teaching materials were clear and practical. It was exactly what they needed to stabilize their situation, but it was also a reminder that humans could have shared this knowledge years ago if the council had treated them as equals. A reminder that human brilliance had always been there, just kept small by council restrictions. A reminder that they had thrown away the greatest asset they had ever had. "What will we tell the council?" one delegate asked. "The truth," Velthrak said. "That we were fools. That we lost humanity through our own arrogance. That we must change or die." Will they listen? Some will. Others will not. But we have no choice. The humans were right.